So since you had a sewer backup, if we were to say that was a relative of one of the hosts, that could be the Pooh Gallifrey Memorial Studio to memorialize.
It wasn't
memorialize
it was
the
like
Pooh Gallifrey that was in your house.
It wasn't like a poo sewer backup. It was like a gray water.
Can you open your
water.
episode as I'm Pooh Gallifrey?
I made that joke.
Please.
As soon as that picture came out,
This is my least favorite meme.
Warning, this podcast contains violence, sexuality, gore, and other horrible and disturbing things. Listener discretion is advised. Also, the hosts of this venture are ignorant dipshits, so please do not take anything they say as fact. And enjoy the show.
Now, are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then we'll begin.
Today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be.
The atoms in your left hand probably came from a different star than your right hand.
It is our basic human right to be fucked up.
A second plane now has crashed into the other tower of the World Trade Center.
Putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
The defendant shall be incarcerated for the rest of her natural life with no possibility of parole.
You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men.
We were somewhere around Barstow, on the edge of the desert, when the drugs began to take hold.
Oh, cause very charges. That's weird. What are you talking about? Haha. Anyways, Dungeons and Dragons. I'm Mood Gallifrey.
That's right.
Richard Bigley.
And in studio with us,
Sprout.
And Arthur Tallis.
Yeah, so me and Arthur are going to tackle Dungeons and Dragons today. So we need something that's as quirky as that game is.
Like actual Dungeons and actual Dragons.
Yeah.
It's not actually about the game.
Yeah, we took a long trip to some European places, found some dungeons, went over to Sumatra, killed some dragons.
Yeah. Turns out they don't breathe fire, but they have a very infectious bite. I lost a leg.
What type of dragons was it like?
Komodo.
Komodo.
Yeah,
okay.
Komodo.
Yeah,
if we have live shows after this, you discover I have 2 legs. It's just, I got better.
I got better. She turned me into a newt. I got better.
Tea and a nap.
So I guess we need some poison.
Yes.
So, what's your poison?
What are we having for poison?
Sage has agreed to drink the entire jar of lacto-fermented carrot juice.
Yeah.
I probably would too.
It would do horrid things to her body to have that amount of vinegar.
Your gut bacteria would just be sparklingly good.
Can I open this?
Yeah, it may or may not
and
be carbonated.
You would poop a lot. Just poop forever?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So,
I was talking about pooping forever.
Wow.
It's real garlicky.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
oh my God.
so
this is way better than fucking dill pickle vodka.
So this is literally just carrots in a brine with a whole clove of garlic.
And these carrots look like they were just picked out of the earth too.
Actually, I got them
and
from
washed them.
the Save On Foods. But I got the organic. They had the long sprouts on them. So if you're real adventurous, eat a whole clove of garlic because it still has all the bite, but it has some of that lacto fermented fun to it. So I also made 3 things of sauerkraut.
Shut up.
I'm going to do some lacto-fermented beets. I'm going to do apparently more of this cider that we had in a different episode, whether it was before
with
or
some
after,
mulling spices.
Yeah, we'll have some mulled apple cider.
This is really good. These carrots are amazing.
I'm glad. I was really I don't know how these are supposed to taste, so I hope they taste okay.
They make good mouth sounds.
Oh, they're real crunchy. Yeah, just
And you have mastrophobia where you're just triggered by mouth sounds?
I'm sorry about this. It's just fun.
You have a phobia?
I'm so sorry about my mouth sounds.
That's usually the smell in this room is just garlic.
It used to be like marijuana, but now it's garlic. The garlic has overtaken in a few moments. The garlic has overtaken the smell of marijuana being smoked for hours, for the past 5 hours.
Yeah.
They sat in my rental car and they had the cap on it and it just stinks like garlic in my car.
You know how ninjas have little powdered eggs full of smoke? I should have a powdered egg full of that brine, so if my landlord comes for a quick visit, I can be like, hide the smell.
So I was bringing marijuana here tonight, but I came straight from work. So I brought my marijuana in my car, and I let it stay in my car over the day, and that was a mistake because now my car smells like marijuana. I need some of this in my car.
So Richard Bigley has just eaten an entire clove of garlic that was been lacto-fermented with carrots in it. Some of them are real harsh garlic. Some of them are really nice.
This one's really nice.
I drive a coworker home, so she came into my car and it smelled like marijuana.
It's like, I'm sorry, it's legal.
That's good.
I didn't say anything. I thought about saying something, but then I didn't. I was gonna say, I'm sorry, it smells like weed in here. I just was going to my friend's house after.
Damnedest thing.
I
was parked in the Sobeys parking lot, and a literal horde of skunks overtook my car. I don't know. What can I say?
So the nice thing about this lacto-fermentation for anyone is that for hard things like carrots, it takes about a week and a half. Sauerkraut, you've got like passable sauerkraut in 3 days. And sauerkraut wants to be fermented. Carrots, not so much, but they went. They had a stopper on them.
Are they going to get more soft, or are they going to stay crunchy?
I think so, but with lacto-fermentation, since it's not a pickle, so it's not an acidic brine, it's actually a salt brine. It doesn't have that breakdown so much. It's just the lactobacillus bacteria that actually eats away at some of it. So, which is why they're still so crunchy after 3 weeks sitting in a brine.
Yeah, and I'm looking into growing more food and preserving more food. So I want to know of all ways to preserve food.
Lacto-fermentation, 2% salt brine. Put it in a jar. Keep it out of sunlight.
This is good. I like it. It's like that ASMR like sounds, just everybody chewing and eating and crunching. I like it. The garlic was fantastic. The carrots are fantastic.
Yeah, that was like
Do
a
you
treat.
have any plans for the rest of this jar, or can I keep it?
Yeah, you can have it.
Woohoo!
You can have it. But I want another one of those before I go.
I want to try a garlic.
Try garlic. The garlic.
Let's all do garlic. Here, pass one to me before you pass over.
Okay.
I'll take a garlic.
Alrighty. Which leads us in. What do we rate these carrots and garlic?
10 out of
10 out of 10, 10 out of 10.
We already did that.
Yeah.
10 out of 10. Everyone is into it.
Fuck, how high are you guys?
I didn't give them a rating.
I did 3 marijuanas.
Thank you all very
much.
Like
intravenously, like you injected
so
them? Or?
Yeah, I
injected 3 marijuanas.
I believe I took the Lord's name in vain, and then I injected 3 marijuanas in between my toes.
Like you do.
Heathen.
While pooping on a baby. I mean, let's be honest here. That's what happened.
On a baby.
So Ood's holding half a carrot, sticking his hand like a big old fat stogie cigar. And I thought it was his finger for a second. I was like, Jesus, man, what happened to your finger?
Dungeons and Dragons. Some claim it's a simple, harmless game.
One of the players Robbie played with got carried away and killed him.
That's kind of far out.
Mazes and Monsters is a far-out game. Swords, poison, spells, battles, maiming, killing.
Hey, it's all imagination.
Is it?
The dark shadows of the day soon crept into Mike's dreams as wild, grisly nightmares haunted his sleep.
I would see just horrific, awful, just bloody and horrible creatures hacking at my friends, and I would stand there and watch my friends as they would be just hacked apart, and they were just incredibly gory dreams. And I would wake up at night, oftentimes I'd be so upset that I would not be able to sleep for the rest of the evening.
You have eyewitnesses. For instance, one case, the parents saw their child summon Dungeons and Dragons demons into his room before he killed himself. Another case, the kid thought he had the ability to astral travel coming from the Dungeons and Dragons game, that he could leave his body and come back. And he had rigged it up just according to the rule book so he could do it. He was surrounded by his materials and put a bullet in his head so he could leave his body, and he's never come back.
This is make-believe, and nobody's murdered, and there's no violence there. I mean, to use an analogy with another game, who is bankrupted by losing a game of Monopoly? Nobody is, because the money is make-believe, the property is make-believe.
Dungeons and Dragons is a real serious problem.
But as we'll see in the upcoming few moments, the problems with role-playing games have moved far beyond Dungeons and Dragons. Kids are becoming acclimated to this very kind of thing, and I began to look through the instruction manual, and I see here how to cast magical spells, and mage spells, and cleric spells, and you go to the pages that it's listed on, in this instance page 41, and they have complete descriptions of how to cast spells, and how to contact powerful spirits, and how to use these spirits and these powers to overcome, obviously, evil or good, because there's both white and black magic in these books. We picked up another one to see if that was just coincidence, and it's dungeon magic here. And we look through again, and we see in here, casting magic spells, page 22, with a complete description, and it says here, each wizard has mastered a certain type of magic. When you meet a wizard, he will give you 4 basic elements of his mystical studies. So we have a wizard now teaching the children of his magical studies. And then here it says, it is important to remember that the source of all magic is the life force of the user. This is the teaching of the occult. This is exactly what we were introduced into in Star Wars and E.T., that there is some magical power, some life force that runs throughout the universe. And it is this power that we can tap into for either good or evil.
So our topic today is going to be Dungeons and Dragons, but moreover, we're just going to be talking about tabletop RPGs.
My glasses.
No, tabletop RPGs actually. So a tabletop RPG, by definition, from Wikipedia, is a role-playing game where the participants describe their actions and their thoughts using speech or text. It's somewhere where the participants determine their actions based on their characterization, and whether your actions succeed or fail based on a formal set of rules. So what that all boils down to is you have some form of saying, I am strong, and I put a number to it. I am smart, I put a number to it. And then using those numbers in some convoluted way, we figure out from some person, or sometimes just amongst ourselves, whether or not we pass or fail. That's it for a tabletop RPG. But there's some fun things that can come from that.
Mm-hmm. First, let's set a groundwork about like how these things evolved. So, like RPGs and like role-playing games in general have been a part of human history for a long, long time. The 202 BC Han Chinese dynasty had a ritual where the elders of the city would get together like once a week or periodically, and they would pretend to be younger versions of themselves. And they would use hand-based chance games, kind of like paper, rock, scissors, to determine if their younger selves got jobs, got married, became successful, stuff like that. They were role-playing versions of their younger selves using games of chance to determine how well they did.
Hand-based chance games is the name of my sex tape.
I love it. Perfect.
Beautiful. In 16th century Europe, they used to play other people in a skit-like theater. So there used to be almost like an improv-like theater. And they would use these different lengths of sticks that you can pull out of people's hands to determine if you're successful or not. It was like the short stick was successful, the long stick wasn't, and then the black stick was like super successful, and the red stick was super unsuccessful. So I'm not sure if that's exactly what it was, but it was something similar to that. But 16th century Europe, they had people getting together pretending to be other people. So say you wanted to pretend to be a carpenter for a week, you would go to that little ritual and you would do that, role-playing other people. War games developed after that. So chess has different roles, different moves, different powers. It's almost like different classes in D&D. Like when you think of D&D, you think of wizards and barbarians and all that, and those are all related to different powers they have. Just like the different chess pieces, they can do different things. That was kind of the base of it. That evolved into something called War Made New by the Duke of Brunswick in 1780. Funny enough, Brunswick was a kind of a pre-territory to Germany. So that's what New Brunswick comes from in Canada.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's kind of like new proto-Germany, basically what that means.
Duke
of Earl,
Duke of Brunswick, Duke of Brunswick, Duke.
As I walk this world. I know that whole song. Yeah, I won't sing it though. That's just, well, you'll just have to wait for white people bullshit to come out.
Yeah. By the way, Susie Q, you're a rock star for still tuning in.
Oh, cool. Hey.
Probably asleep by now, I'm sure.
Maybe we sang her to sleep. I fall asleep to people talking. Like
Yeah,
on
so
different,
do I.
Yeah.
I call those customers.
But the Duke of Brunswick. Oh, the Phantom Lights have come on. The Duke of Brunswick made a book called War Made New to train new officers in the military, and they would move metal pieces around a board, rolling dice in order to perform war games. So they would perform war games with entire armies with metal pieces, and that was back in 1780. In 1913, H.G. Wells was the person that moved those war games into like just regular hobbies, and he published the first hobby RPG called Little Wars, and it was playing squads of soldiers such as French, German, British, and each country had different powers. So you could go to war with different countries. The wizard had certain powers. So in his RPG, the Americans had certain powers. The Canadians had superpowers. It was like different classes. You could perform worldwide war games on each other.
As a civilian hobby, miniature wargaming became popular in 1913 with the publication of Little Wars by the novelist H.G. Wells. His book offered a simple set of rules for playing with toy soldiers. Little Wars sparked widespread public interest in a hobby that had previously been confined to professional military circles.
Wells certainly didn't invent the idea of a war game. Games of strategy such as chess, checkers, backgammon, or Chinese Go date back well before 1000 BC. However, the idea of trying to simulate modern combat on a table is much more recent. A Prussian staff officer named von Reiswitz created a set of rules which became known as Kriegspiel. This revolutionary game had rules for map movement, fog of war, and limited communication. It was adopted by the Prussian General Staff as a training tool, and Prussian officers would later claim their brilliant victory in the 1870 Franco-Prussian War had been thoroughly play-tested with the use of Kriegspiel.
It didn't take long for other militaries and war colleges to adopt wargaming as a simulation and training tool, but it was H.G. Wells in 1913 who created the division between war games as a military training tool and war games as recreation and fun for civilians. That ushered in an explosion of mass market war games from companies like SPI and Avalon Hill. But around here, we still love the old-fashioned miniatures tabletop wargaming. H.G. Wells and his friends used to play games like this on the floor, dressed in suits. It was a gentleman's pursuit.
We don't wear suits, and only one of us qualifies as a gentleman, but not much has changed since 1913.
In 1974, Gary Gygax publishes D&D. He was expecting to sell 800 copies. That's what his publisher would consider a success, 800 copies.
He sold like a zillion?
Oh, yeah. Within the first year, he sold 50,000, and it kept on increasing after that.
Also, how better name could you have for the master, the beginner of D&D, but Gary Gygax?
Oh, yeah.
Gygax.
Gygax.
It's fucking cool, man.
Yeah, and I actually was going to go into what D&D is, but you explained it very well. So we can go right into the Satanic Panic.
About 2 months ago, a green eyeball was seen up in the sky. This eyeball was so big it blotted out the sun, okay?
These young people are playing Dungeons and Dragons. It's an enormously complicated game in which each player chooses an imaginary character he'll assume. There are dwarfs, knights and thieves, gods and devils, magic and spells. It's a journey into a land of fantasy through complicated mazes where you use your wits to kill your enemies before they kill you, all in a quest for wealth and power. The Dungeon Master orchestrates and referees the game, creating scenarios both complicated and terrifying. There are those who are fearful that the game in the hands of vulnerable kids could do harm, and there is evidence that seems to support that view. Timothy Grice, 21, a shotgun suicide. The detective report noted, D&D became a reality. Irving Bink Pulling, 16, an avid D&D player, a suicide. Daniel and Stephen Irwin, 16 and 12, a murder and a suicide. The police said they were obsessed with the game. James Allen Kirby, 14 years old, charged with killing his junior high school principal and wounding 3 other people. Police are blaming D&D. Jeffrey Jaklovich, 14. Stephen Loyacano, 16. Michael Dempsey, 17. And the list goes on.
The company that makes the Dungeons and Dragons material is TSR Incorporated of Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. They estimate there are 3 to 4 million kids who play the game. Last year, they grossed nearly $30 million, with Dungeons and Dragons books and paraphernalia accounting for most of those sales. Gary Gygax owns the company and invented the game. Dieter Sturm is the head of public relations.
There are a number of cases that have been documented where there is some connection between D&D. I'm not saying that D&D is the cause of the death, but paraphernalia from the game has been found at the scene of the death. Notes, suicide notes referring to the game have been found, and all of these people, in a dozen or so cases, have been documented as avid D&D players. And you see no connection whatsoever?
We see no connection for the fact that right now there's some 3 to 4 million players of the game actively throughout the United States. Right at this particular time, 1985, teenage suicide is epidemic across the country, with some 5,000 kids a year now taking their lives. I think that to say that because that child played Dungeons & Dragons, who's to say that that child does not watch television, does not participate in high school sports, or what per se?
I have yet to see one bit of valid clinical evidence to show that this has been anything more than coincidental with a disturbed child.
If you found 12 kids in murder-suicide with one connecting factor in each of them, wouldn't you question it? And that's all people would do.
I would certainly do it in a scientific manner, and this is as unscientific as you can get. It's nothing but a witch hunt.
D&D started to become so popular. It was the thing to do. Media wasn't as plentiful. The internet wasn't really up and going yet. Like, in those ages, things weren't as accessible. So getting together to play role-playing games with your friends was more of a ritual back then. It was a way to get together, an excuse to get together. And it became super popular, especially in like high school and college-age kids. And of course, it's kind of like saying smartphones cause murders because the murderer had a smartphone today. Like, so many people have smartphones today, that's not really a factor. So many people in the teen to college age back then were playing D&D that it eventually became associated with events, and people started making up stuff about it and saying that, like, for instance, murders were because of this and suicides were because of this. The Satanic Panic happened as a result of D&D, and it was like a Christian and Catholic reaction. Here are the Bible verses they used to justify. Whoopsie.
You lost
the
your
fear
carrot.
of Neat. I did. I'm kind of awkwardly holding them because I don't want to chew while I'm talking.
You should pass me a carrot.
Yeah.
Pass the carrots.
Pass the carrots. Okay.
Could you pass that to me, Sprout, please? Yes.
So the first argument comes from First Theologians 5:22. Abstain ye from all appearance of evil. So D&D has violence, sex, murder, monsters, other gods besides Yahweh, magic, evil, devils, angels. It's sinful on its face. It breaks several sins just to play it, because as soon as your character has a god and your character starts worshiping, that could be considered idolatry. That could be considered like violating the first sin.
And as someone with orange skin and orange hair would say, or what do you say, Corinthians?
Yeah.
1 Corinthians.
Yeah. Not first, yeah.
Yeah, it's not first. 1 Corinthians.
Yeah, he read that on the teleprompter like that moment, and then 1. The other argument used by Christians and Catholics was that Gary Gygax used, and the people that helped to make D&D use real-world religion and rituals in order to construct D&D. And that was true. They went to real-world religions and sources because they wanted to have their magic be based on like a whole bunch of different things from humanity. They want it to be based sort of like in fact, so it can reflect the world. So, and that was what a lot of the first edition D&D was about. And so that was another argument. Like, who knows, when you're playing D&D, maybe you will do a ritual because, you know, they named the same spell after this ancient ritual, so it has to be the same thing and stuff like that. The third argument was that there's a whole bunch of places in the Bible, there's 18 of them, that say that you shouldn't tamper with magic and the occult. Some examples: Deuteronomy 18:10. Let no one among you practice divination or sorcery. Leviticus 19:31. Do not turn to mediums or spirits. You shall be defiled by them.
Oops.
Exodus 22:18. Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live.
Exodus?
That's Exodus? Oh boy.
Exodus.
Yep.
That's Exodus.
I was thinking of Yu-Gi-Oh.
You shall not suffer a witch
Exodus
to
is the
live,
forbidden
which
one?
is only present after the King James Bible. It comes from King James.
So there's a bunch of Bible verses that tangentially disagree with what D&D is, on its face. So why was this such a big deal in the 1980s? That's because in the 1980s, so much more of the population was religious. 61% of people were Catholic. 27% of people were Protestant. Approximately 88% of the population lived by the Bible, the King James Bible, or whatever version of the Bible they used. And media wasn't as plentiful back then. So instead of having YouTube videos to watch and Twitch videos and Netflix and movies and multiple TV channels, there was a limited amount of TV channels, and there was this cultural ritual around watching talk shows and the evening news. So when a pastor came on and talked about how something new was sinful and something new might be preying on your kids, especially if he's a religious thought leader, it meant more because, news these days, they're lucky to break 1 million views, even with the population being this high. Back then, a good, huge portion of the population tuned into the nightly news every single night as a family ritual. So many people were listening to these messages from religious leaders saying D&D is evil because of this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the source of a lot of the satanic panic, is these thought leaders going on these daytime talk shows and radio shows and nightly news and talking about these things.
I do not think that many parents are aware of what's inside the game. In fact, in my presentation, I show many pictures from the inside the books, just to show the images of this game. I mean, the gruesomeness of this game and the occult link to it.
Well, I know that when I did my message, and this has happened, I have letter after letter where people took the pieces. Now, there's sixes involved in the pieces of the game, but they take the pieces of the game, they would throw them in the incinerator or the fireplace, and screams would come out because there seemed to be some kind of spiritual forces inhabiting those pieces, and children would drop out of life. They didn't want to study anymore. What are the pieces, for instance?
Well, this game affects the most intelligent of our children. And the pieces include white witches, wizards, necromancers, the clerics, that type of thing. It includes evil wizards. It's a white versus black witchcraft. The good versus evil is white versus black witchcraft. And Anton LaVey, the writer of the Satanist Bible, says there is no such thing as white witchcraft.
Well, being a Satan worshiper, he should know.
Yeah.
So that created the satanic panic. Millions of kids play D&D, so what I said before, it's just like saying blaming murders on smartphones when almost everybody has smartphones. An example of this is Patricia Pulling. Patricia Pulling's son died by suicide, and I imagine it has to be so disorienting, so world-flipping to lose a child before you go. And I can't imagine the kind of pain she's in, and I understand searching fervently for explanations. But from the accounts I read, from the accounts I've read of people who've lost children, it seems like the whole world is wrong and unjust. So I don't want to blame this on her, because she was in a legitimately hard place. But she found out later on that her son was into D&D, and she decided to blame his suicide on that. And she founded BADD, or Bothered About Dungeons and Dragons. It also took on
quite the name.
Bothered
actually.
Against?
I'm bothered.
Bothered About Dungeons and Dragons with, Vice Counsel Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, bother.
Oh, bother.
Oh no, that's Eeyore.
That's Eeyore. Yeah.
No. Oh no, I got my 1990s references fucked.
It's okay, you're just a baby.
I know. I'm just a
I have
baby.
no excuse.
She also she said that D&D had demonology, voodoo, witchcraft, perversion, barbarism, desecration, which is all true. They all have elements of those things.
I hope she doesn't listen to the podcast because she'll be in for more of the same. It sounds
that sounds like a regular weeknight at my house.
Yeah. So she went on talk shows, she wrote books, she did traveling talks, she did guest sermons at churches. She spread this message that Dungeons and Dragons was preying on your children and it'll cause them to kill themselves or kill others.
What was that movie that we watched?
The Darkest Dungeons?
Yeah, well, we watched it at Skeptic Cinema.
Yeah, Darkest Dungeons.
That was fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a movie made in the late 90s, I believe. That was all about, like, somebody being taken over by the Beast and all that, based on a Jack Chick tract. We're going to talk about that in a second, actually.
It was very funny.
Oh, yeah. But later on, after D&D kind of moved on and, like, changed itself to adapt, she went on to go against the works of H.P. Lovecraft because they were full of demonology and, like, horrible stuff, too.
H.P. Lovecraft was a very racist sci-fi author. Like,
oh, yes.
Jesus.
Oh, yes.
More horror than sci-fi. But
well, yeah. Like, he kind of... Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he had an unfortunate name for his cat, which I shan't repeat here.
You must trust me without hesitation, for this is the most important adventure of your very lives.
Are you ready to RPG?
Yeah! You have one goal, and one goal only. To stay in the game.
Let's get ready to RPG!
Who are you? I'm Marcy. No! You are not Marcy! Who are you? I'm Blackleaf, the thief of the shadows.
RPG! 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 RPG!
Maybe we should go. That senior warned us about playing RPGs.
Using RPGs to fight evil will never work because RPGs are evil.
Spells?
I think your hands are perfect for spellcasting. There's so much that you could do with them.
Poison? Battles? Maiming? Killing?
I'm going to die? Yeah, but it's all imagination.
Is it?
And thanks to the power of the subconscious, they will begin to live it for real.
But I thought the Necronomicon and Cthulhu were just fictional.
Oh no, Debbie. The Necronomicon and Cthulhu mythos are all too real.
Yeah, and just to dispel any thoughts, in 1991, the American Association of Suicidology, the U.S. Center for Disease Control, and the Health and Welfare Office in Canada all decided to agree and put out simultaneous statements that there was absolutely no link between role-playing and suicidal/homicidal behavior. Sometimes it costs millions and millions of dollars in the cooperations of two governments and science teams to answer a question you already knew the answer of, but it's good that we have data on it, because that way you can have backing to your argument. So we know that from this study that there's no real link between suicide, murder, and role-playing. So you know that these fears are unfounded, even if you knew that already. Something else that came out in the Satanic Panic was the Jack Chick tract, Darkest Dungeons. So here's the timeline of Darkest Dungeons. Debbie was playing D&D. Then Debbie started playing D&D in robes on a pentagram with people drinking around her for some reason. Then Debbie learns real magic and uses a mind bondage spell on her father to buy her new role-playing books.
Like you do.
Yeah, then Debbie's friend's D&D character dies. Then her friend commits suicide because she misses her D&D character. And then Debbie goes to church and gets the D&D demons removed from her.
The D&D demons?
Yeah, the D&D demons.
The fuck out.
That's the timeline of the Jack Chick tract. Something else that happened in the Satanic Panic was D&D adjusted its language to, like, I guess, bow down to Christians a little bit. It kind of caved in a little bit. And so instead of demons, they turned their name to Tanari. Instead of devils, they became Biatsu. And instead of angels, they became archons. So they didn't want any names that shared. But they're pretty much like like skin changes. If you play video games and you know you can change skins for things, they're just skin changes for angels, demons, and devils. They're pretty much the same thing, represented the same ideas. They just didn't share names with the Abrahamic religions.
Yeah, and that's the big difference, because the initial thing that Gary Gygax wrote, and there's someone else with him, but when we talk about it, we call it OD&D, as in original D&D, because first edition, we're on 5th edition now, first edition is called AD&D, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and that's the one where the things have been sort of scrubbed from it. And you can still find OD&D around. It's not that bad. It's not a very good system, particularly, but...
I'll pass it off to you to go with everything up until Fatal.
Yeah, so the Satanic Panic is basically over, besides Riversdale having their...
Griffins and Gargoyles. They just put new episodes on Netflix.
Yeah, so besides them having that, it's pretty much over. People aren't too worried about kids playing Dungeons and Dragons. It's mainstream. It's Stranger Things had it, and everyone loves it now.
Yeah.
I've seen it in nursing homes multiple times. So.
Yeah, and people have actually found the significant benefits people can having from role playing and being able to work through traumas and things by role playing through them. But we have a different problem now, and that's inherent sexism and racism within the games. So when I did the research for this, it was mostly on sexism. And I couldn't find too much that was blatantly sexist, where women were worse than men in the game mechanics. But I found scads of people talking about, I'm a woman, I tried to play D&D for the first time, and here's what you people need to do to make this a more woman-friendly game. Because a bunch of white guys will sit around a table and say, what can we do to get more women in the game? Because half the population isn't playing the game we love. Here's some examples of things that I pulled from a bunch of different people. Shower. Wear deodorant. This is the basic of gamer culture, of the unwashed basement dweller. Yeah, it's true. There are people out there that they don't put on deodorant. They don't shower. They don't brush their teeth when they're going to have a game where you talk at people. Don't sexually harass people at the table. People have talked about how the DM would have to continually, the dungeon master, the person in charge, would have to continually ask over and over again, oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention, because they were looking down the person's shirt.
Oh, Jesus.
Or playing Fuck, Marry, Kill at the table with the people at the table saying, on the side, oh, her, I'd totally fuck her and marry her and kill her, with them in full view and listening.
It's so classy.
Or even trying to do it with your characters too, because I've seen as a person that's run games, I've seen that before too, where I've had a player try and uncomfortably get with another player's character and stuff like that. And
yeah, it's like, can I roll to sexually harass this person? No, but the biggest problem is that there are some dungeon masters, game masters out there that would say yes.
Ew.
And they say, well, if it's possible to do in real life, it should be possible in the game for realism's sake, which is horseshit.
Yeah, that's yucky.
Lewd comments, negging. Also little things, and not so little things. And of course, I'm a cisgendered man, so I don't know what these are like, but assuming incompetence, saying, oh, your character's too good. Did your boyfriend make that for you? Because women can't be intelligent enough to play a fairly simple game.
Yeah.
How hard is it to be just decent?
This is the biggest threat.
That just is so
not being a terrible person.
It costs nothing to not be a dick.
But it's so based in this society, and it's so based in this idea that the gamer is this certain person, that I think it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy of well, if I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons, it's going to be in a basement. I'm not going to have to shower because it's my good buddies and blah blah blah. But you're at cons. You're in your friendly local gaming shop. You're out in public. You're meeting new people and putting forward that face of I'm going to stare down this chick's dress, stare at her tits, and then make fun of her for being too good at the game. Making them do woman's work. In game, lots of games, you have to eat. You have to procure a place to sleep. You have to cook. You have to clean. Well, obviously the female characters, whether or not they're playing a female character, the females in the room do that part. And then even you have someone that plays your D&D with you all the time, and they'll say, oh, well, my girlfriend doesn't want to play because it's not a girl's game. And
The
real
fuck is a girls' game?
Real women don't play Dungeons and Dragons. When there's women at the table that are sitting there playing Dungeons and Dragons as if being gamers or being good at games is antithetical to being a woman.
You mean I'm not a real girl because I play Dungeons and Dragons?
To a lot of people, yeah, and that's really, really shitty.
Yeah.
Of course, and there's ways to combat this. Again, being a decent human being is a really good start. And I believe we might even go into sort of the ethics of how to run a game, maybe as a Patreon thing. For only $1, you could be in that.
Yeah.
But there are very simple ways. One that I've done that I'll tell you about right now is a thing called the black card, where I put a card in the middle of the table and say, if you, for any reason, think that you don't want to be part of this scene, tap on that card. And when you tap on that card, I will stop doing whatever I'm doing, fade to black, go to the next thing. And that's so easy for me. That's so easy for the players. But it doesn't get done.
Yeah, so I think that's important. Like, I mean, like I've had one experience playing Dungeons and Dragons, and it was with you.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, like my D&D experience has been all good, but I could definitely, like, I was friends with a lot of people that were like that, and I think that probably is the reason why it took me until I was 32 years old to try it.
I didn't get into the game for a very long time because the person that was running the game in my high school, they said, "Oh, it's great. You get to come play D&D. You can be a wizard, and everybody ends up being someone's sex toy. Everyone ends up being someone's slave. You will be enslaved. You won't have agency." It's like, then why am I playing a role-playing game where I have agency?
And my D&D experience is almost exclusively with Ood being my DM and also being in a group of, and then the other experience I have is being in a group with just girls playing, just women playing, because, and yeah, so like I'm aware of this issue because like the only game those are the only 2 games I've been in, and both of those games, or I guess all 3 of those games, kind of, I don't know, have been predominantly women at my table.
Yeah. Well, like right now, because Richard and Sage have played both one time, both with me in a safe environment. If I were to say, okay, there's a con coming up, and there's going to be D&D tables, and they'll let anyone play go, Richard would have a good time. You get in a table, it might be lame to play, but there's a real possibility that Sage could be, if not just like sexually, not assaulted, but like harassed, possibly sexually assaulted. And that's something that has to change societally, but also like in the games we love.
Yeah. Absolutely. And like I said, like in high school, I knew lots of people that played D&D, and I was friends with lots of them, but I would never want to be there because I knew that exactly what you described as happening would happen.
Or they wouldn't play the way they normally play because, there's a girl.
Oh, there's a girl.
We can't play with the girls because they don't like blood. It's like they're going to play D&D. They know what they're getting into.
Yeah, exactly.
Already, part 1 of 2 of Dungeons and Dragons. You know, it's fun to look into the deepest, darkest parts of humanity, but it's also enjoyable to look at something totally mundane and find the darkness that surrounds it, and the controversy and the discussions that can be had. So that's kind of why we look at stuff like this. So, playing us out will be all the way from 1922, Aggravatin' Papa by Marion Harris. Enjoy.
We are to have like that.
Aggravating, Papa, don't you try to don't two-time me. Aggravating Papa, treat me kind or let me be. I mean, just let me be. Listen while I get you told. Stop messing around, sweet jelly roll. If you step out with a high brown baby, I'll smack you down, and I don't mean maybe. Aggravating Papa, I'll do anything you say. Yes, anything you say. But when you go strutting, do you strutting round my way? So, Papa, just treat me pretty. Be nice and sweet, 'cause I possess a 44 that don't repeat. Aggravating Papa, don't you try to two-time me. I don't mean maybe. Aggravating Papa, I'll do anything you say. Yes, anything you say. But when you go strutting, do you strut around my way? Now, Papa, I said you catfish till you got fat. Now, where's your appreciation? Let me ask you that. Aggravating Papa, don't you try to two-time me. Brown men are triflers, tan men are worse. I guess I'll get a fast black and play safety first. Aggravating Papa, don't you try to two-time me.
Alrighty, hello occultists, I am Ood Gallifrey, and here we are once again with some prayers to Val. If you didn't know, the moment you started listening to this podcast, you might have used to been a Presbyterian, maybe a Christian, maybe you followed the Judean religions, maybe something not so westernized and popular, but now you are under the cult of Val, who is our goddess. The lovely Valhalla, who resides in the sky and looks down upon all of us and gives gifts of plenty. That's the reason this podcast exists, is because she wills it into being. Yeah, fact. Science. So, once in a while I ask the people on the Discord, the people that contribute to our Patreon, and get access to the Patreon-only Discord, to pray to their goddess, and I read them out straight on the show here. So, Bambi. Blessed Val, please give the gift of basic fucking competence to the people along whom I work, both professionally and in volunteer, in the hopes that extra work can avoid falling to me. I recognize that's a pretty selfish request, but #mood. I understand both sides of that equation. I have both been the tired, dispassionate worker that does not want to contribute one more ounce of effort to this shitty-ass job, and I have also been on the side of having extra work falling upon me because of incompetence surrounding me, so I understand that. #mood. Val, in all your wisdom, grant this prayer, if you please. From Exaria. Dear Valhalla, please let today's visit to my attorney go well and provide comfort. Oh, and impeach Trump. Amen. Hail Val. Now, we are a small cult, and I'm not sure if Val's power grows with the amount of people that worship her, but it sure couldn't hurt. But I hope that one day we grow in power enough to be able to have her grant anything she wants. Or perhaps she's now at her full power now, and the blessings we're receiving are just the little trickles of her mercy. So, if that's true, please grant Exaria's prayer, Valhalla, and smite him. From Bambi yet again. Dear Val, thank you for blessing my McDonald's order this morning. And It is 2 Egg McMuffins for $5, 1 large coffee regular for $1 with a subtotal of $6, the GST of 30 cents, PST of 36 cents, coming to a takeout total of $6.66. Yes, bless that breakfast. From Snuggler. Hope you're having a good day, Val. I would like to give thanks to my very kind co-worker today. She saw I was having a rough morning and brought me out to lunch, and we had a good talk. I feel a lot more support in my workplace, and now that someone knows what's going on in my life. From Stephen Sky Tower. I prostrate myself to the power that is Valhalla. Blessed is the goddess who gives her followers the encouragement and determination to do the things that bring her followers success and happy meals. Yes, hail Val indeed. From Susie Q. I give thanks for the OV Pod community, the Discord, and the joys that it has brought into my life. Hail Val. Yes, the community that we formed on the Discord with the other people that contribute to our Patreon has really grown into a nice little community. We kind of support each other and give each other advice and tell each other about our bad days and our good days and all that fancy stuff, and also share memes and shit. And it's become kind of nice. Yeah, if you want to be a part of that community for as little as $1 a month, just hit us up on our Patreon, sign up. You know, you get bonus stuff on the Patreon feed, you get to vote on future episodes, all sorts of stuff. That is patreon.com/OVPod. That's patreon.com/OVPod. Alrighty, that's it from me. I've been Ood Gallifrey. I'm gonna read the rest of the prayers next week, my little munchkins. I love you all. You are beautiful. Remember, have a shower orange, or a shower beer, or a shower joint. I've been finding solace in a lot of shower-related amenities this Christmas season. Have a good night.